Welcome back to Talkin Shop, the podcast built for makers, fabricators, and all you entrepreneurs, all you who want to build smarter and better businesses. So we're back for another episode. Today's topic is going to be something that often gets a bad rap in the shop world, right? And it's called consumables. And before we get started on that, though, I'm your host, Brandon Bombardo, here with Luigi of the show,
Mamma mia!
Nick Peters.
Is that what he says?
That's what he says.
I Googled that yesterday to figure this out, so I had to come back for you.
I had to keep it.
I'm just used to Mario.
Because you're the Luigi. I like it.
I'm not a fan. Luigi kind of sucks.
He's kind of awesome, actually.
He's just kind of the forgotten guy that's just off in the
never
background.
forgotten.
He just
didn't get his own video game, so you're upset about it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, man. I want my own show.
Whoa.
Just kidding.
Next week, we'll be back with Talkin Shop with Nick Peters, and I will be his host.
And JB telling stories from the past.
Oh, man. Jim will never. Good luck. Good luck.
Challenge accepted.
I wish you the best.
I can make that happen. He likes me.
He does like you. He does not like
He's never fired me.
He's never fired you.
Yet.
Do a show with him. He might. You never know.
True story. God, that would be awesome.
It would be awesome, though. The stories he has.
I've accepted that challenge so many times and still haven't made it happen.
I know, because he's just not that guy. He won't put
There's
himself
got to be
in front of a camera.
something that I can entice him with.
I don't think so. He's very not wanting to be on camera guy.
Well, we don't have to record it.
He's being recorded, though.
Right, but he's not on camera.
Okay, well.
If I tell him you're not going to be here, he'll do it. Be like, how soon can we do this?
He'd be like, let's go do it right now. No, anyways, moving on. We're going to flip the script because we're going to talk about consumables today, and we're going to say why consumables really aren't a problem as much as some people believe they are. They're part of the process, and when you plan for them correctly, we've talked about this in past episodes, but we're going to kind of elaborate on it further. They don't cost you anything. They enable you to make money. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get started. And again, I just know that most businesses and most companies out there have some form of a consumable. And I just think it's worth the conversation. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because we've gotten more into fiber laser as an example. We hear people asking about consumables all the time, and I try to explain like, hey, you know what, consumables are going to vary based on what you're going to do. And the big thing that people often get hung up on is like, well, I gotta buy this or I gotta buy that, and it's like, yeah, but it shouldn't matter because what you're doing should cover that.
For sure.
So that's where I want to talk about it because it's not just fiber laser, it's plasma consumables, it's router consumables, it's every consumable that you ever work with in your company. Some people view them as a negative thing, and reality is if you're accounting for them correctly, they're not a bad thing. So,
and if you're going through them, you're outputting products, which is making you money, hopefully, right?
That's my thought always. It's kind of I'll get into it in a little bit here, but
questions.
Let's get into questions, comments, because I want to talk about a comment my dad made a while ago about taxes, and it makes me think of consumables. So we'll touch on that here shortly, but yeah, let's get into your questions that you have today.
All right, question number 1.
Yeah,
referring to the new OptiLaser project you did on a cutting board, how long did that take you?
I loved that project, for the record. For those who haven't seen it, we have a new video out that I did. I did a video a couple weeks ago on a hockey puck for my son, which turned out awesome, by the way, and realized like, hey, this is kind of cool. And so I started thinking like, how can I do more with it? Well, my wife, it didn't take her long to come up with a honey-do list for me. And we had a wedding coming up. And so she asked me to laser engrave, like on the cutting board itself, like in the face of it, there's that, like where you can put somebody's name.
Yep.
And so she had me put their last name. And we did it, and it was awesome. It turned out great. So to answer the question, how long did it take me to do that? The actual cutting time, or the actual burning time, if you will, was right around 7 minutes. And I basically turned a $9 cutting board into something that will be a keepsake for a lifetime.
Think about that. How easy is something like that to make a really cool gift?
It was awesome.
Inexpensively too.
It is. It's just a cool way to make a little bit more money with your machines. In fact, we're at a point now where my wife's like, well, that was pretty cool. Can we put one in the garage now? And I'm like, oh no.
She wants a router?
Yeah.
With a oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So I had my router in the garage at our old house, and when we moved, we sold it. And I thought I finally got away. I don't have to do this anymore. And now she's like, "Oh wait, I can do stuff with it now." And she's starting
Sounds
to
to
see
me like
better.
you're going to be building an Etsy website.
We're probably. I mean, like realistically, my wife would probably do that. But
That's cool though.
yeah, it's pretty cool to see her get involved with it, and she just loves it. And she didn't go for my idea though, because on the cutting board I put established and had the date. I wanted to put divorced and blank in case they got divorced. I could just fill the blank.
Save the file, then you can just add in the
She didn't.
number.
She didn't think that was a good idea. So apparently, you're not allowed to give that to your cousin.
You should have made two and gave them that one, and it's like, just kidding.
For the record,
Here's the
like,
real
yeah,
one.
they're a really great couple.
That would have been fun.
I wish them the best, but I thought it would be funny because I get along with them very well, so I thought it would be a good joke. But she didn't.
You knew your audience.
I knew my audience. Yeah. So, anyways, moving on.
Question number 2.
Yeah.
It's a shame that ShopSabre would not use a pneumatic vacuum gate for the table.
I'm assuming you're talking about vacuum hold down. I guess. I mean, there could be vacuum.
Yeah, I think specifically for the ISA.
Okay, got it. We do have a vacuum gate. So that's why I was curious about that. We do use a vacuum gate on the ISA, and it's intended to turn the vacuum on and off when it's going from load to unload, because obviously you have to turn vacuum off so you can slide the machine or the sheet off. So there is an automated vacuum gate there. So not sure if that just was overlooked or whatnot, but yeah, we do offer an automated vacuum gate. It's actually a pneumatic vacuum gate that does turn that vacuum on and off, which is common practice for a loader unloader process. But if you're referring to our manual machines, the pump stays on. So for most people, they're not having to do that. I guess you're just going to turn the zones off to unload your parts. So right in the front of the machine, we have the zone control. So, I mean, you could install a pneumatic vacuum gate if you wanted to between the pump, depending where you put your pump in your shop and the machine. And that can be tied into the controller. The controller has the ability to automate that. In fact, we even offer an option for automated vacuum on off, so we can signal to it to turn it on and off. So it is a feature available. It just comes down to budgeting and how much you want to spend. So,
all right. Question number 3.
yeah.
Why on a FiberSabre would I want to run gas instead of compressed air? Is that not going to raise my cost?
This is a awesome question to lead us into today's
topic,
segment. Yeah. I have a feeling you chose this for that reason. So good job. There's a time and place for each. That's the one thing I will say. When it comes to gas instead of compressed air, each one of them have their advantages and disadvantages. And obviously, like oxygen in mild steel, you'll end up with a cleaner cut because you're going to end up with better edge finish. It intensifies the cutting power is what it does. It's just like adding oxygen to a fire, right? Yep. Additionally, it will reduce the demand in your air system, which is nice because some people's air compressors just aren't big enough. You don't have enough compressed air to run at the PSI that you need to run. So that's something you have to take into consideration is when you're having to run compressed air, you have to run a very sophisticated compressor, especially with a fiber laser. And so therefore, if you're trying to maintain the nicest finish, a lot of times gas will do it easier just because of the burn and obviously not having to run that's high cost compressor. But with compressed air, depending on your thickness, the pressure, has to be a lot higher. Like I said, it's necessary to keep the dross or the slag on the back of the piece, to a minimum. And so, depending on what you're looking to do, I guess that's the biggest thing is, how thick of material you're cutting will determine how much compressed air you really need to have, and how much cleanup you're willing to do will determine that. So, if you're looking for the best results, as efficient as possible, sometimes gas makes sense, and that's why that option exists. So, if you're pricing out your consumables appropriately, kind of leading into today's stuff, like the gas should fit into the job, and it shouldn't be a big deal. So,
well, and if you're using gas to get better cuts, you can obviously charge a little more for higher quality cuts, right?
Well, I think, in general, you're going to get a premium for your product because it's a better finish, but also you're going to probably capture more business because a better cut quality is typically going to drive in more, demand. So, there's a time and place for both, and sometimes the time and place depends on your budget. So, yeah. So, hopefully that answers that question, but that kind of leads us into today's topic because, oh, here we go again. Yeah.
Oh, I missed.
You missed this week. What are a consumable though? Like as we talk about that, and really, a consumable in the world can be anything that is naturally used when you do something, right?
Yep.
Like a consumable for my race car is going to be, something like air filters, right? I would change the air filter every single race. And so that's a consumable to me because I'm going to consume it every single time I run the car. They're parts that are naturally wearable items, right? And whether they're worn out or just a replacement preventatively, that's your determination there. But like, as an example, routers, you're going to have router bits. For plasmas, you're going to have your plasma consumable, your tips, right? And then for lasers, you have your nozzles. So there's 3 different applications that it fits into. And then, you think of all the other things in the application. You can have collets for routers. You can have filters for your dust collectors and your air compressors. You can have, belts on certain machines, depending on what you run, conveyor systems as an example. You may have belts that you have to replace. And so a sander has obviously sanding discs. So there's a lot of different things that you can consider a consumable. Gases being another one, right? You just asked that question about gases. That's a consumable, right? Because it's a shop material that you're going to consume to run your machine and make your product. So all of these things are meant to wear, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they're not getting worn out, like I said earlier, you're not making any product, obviously.
Yeah, that's their job. Right. I mean, essentially, they're doing their job if they're wearing out, right? So it means your equipment is working, as you said, right? And it means you're making money. Right. I guess that's the way that I always look at it. So I think really people need to get out of their head and stop treating consumables like it's a problem. Because if you have 0 consumables, you're probably not running something.
Right.
Like,
do people look at it in a bad way because it's just they feel like it's extra money they're spending to keep doing their stuff?
It's cost of doing business. And I think people, when you consider cost of doing business, they try to minimize it all the time. And there's too many business owners out there that treat consumables like they're a bad thing. And I've worked for a shop, I mean, not here, thankfully, but I've worked for a shop where like they literally micromanage how many bits you got. And you had an allowance essentially of bits you were allowed to use. And it's like, if somebody is using that many bits that you have to like give them allowance, like they're probably doing something wrong.
Right.
But
something else that needs to be addressed.
Right. If we're doing our job right, like the consumable is the consumable. So use more of them because that means you're getting more work done. Right. So, I think about it, I don't know. I think about it as if you're not going through consumables, you're probably not either running the machine enough, right? Or you're not cutting enough or, whatever you want to call it, right? Or you're not shipping something. You're not billing for something, right? That the mindset has to shift. Consumables equals production, and production equals profit.
Right.
And obviously, anybody who knows profit knows that's a good thing. Right. So, no consumables means no business, and in many cases, no profit. So, as I mentioned in racing, I have consumables. They're tires, they're air filters, oil changes. No matter what you do, you're going to have a consumable. So even, if you own an ATV, a lawnmower, whatever, like you have consumables in those things too. You just don't look at them as consumables, right? You look at them as just, it's just part of the deal, right? Like, well, why not look at it that way with your machines that you have that are making you money? You replace the tires on your pickup truck and you probably complain about that too, but the prices are ridiculous. Right? But you got to do it, right? Because it's necessary part of your truck. And the same can be said for, sanding discs on your machine or whatever you're running. But it's just something, no matter what you do, you'll have a consumable if you're doing something.
Every single time, no matter what. Heck, even going back to what we talked about before, like shop towels or brooms to sweep the floor. There's all just those things that you need to have to keep your business moving forward. Like little things you may not always think of, but things
WD-40.
Things you have to get the job done and complete, right?
Right. It brings me to what I was alluding to earlier with my dad in Texas. When I first got into business and I was like kind of coming up and figuring the world out and realizing that the world's a hell of a lot messier than I thought it was, right? Like in school, they don't teach you a lot of stuff that you realize you need. Right. And one of them being taxes. And I got my first tax bill when I had my first business. And I called my dad immediately. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I remember just like being livid. And my dad literally said, "Do you owe taxes?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Good for you. That means you made money." And I'm like, "No, not good for me." He's like, "Well, your alternative is just don't make money then." He's like, "You won't owe any taxes then." And it kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. And he's not wrong. He's like, "It's something I learned in business. If you owe taxes, make more money." He goes, it is what it is. He goes, you can't legally get out of it. He's like, are there loopholes? Are there things? He's like, people do things, right? He's like, but the reality is taxes are always going to be something. And it's the kind of the same mentality with consumables. Oh, you have a consumable bill? Good job. You made money, because it means that you use something. So,
and hopefully you planned accordingly, right?
Right.
And
right.
Actually,
and that's really what it comes down to. And I'm glad you said that, because that's the next step of this, is that the key is planning for it, right? And it's the same for taxes. You plan for your taxes as they're coming, hopefully. I hope you've been planning for your taxes. But the only time consumables really become a problem is when they are unaccounted for, right? Just like taxes.
Yep.
When they're unaccounted for, they become a problem.
For sure.
But if you price your jobs correctly, if you understand what each job costs you to run, and that means, the number of consumables you're going to use to do that job are already built into your margin. And so margin isn't affected because I built it into where I'm going. And so if price A includes consumables, then I charge price C, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. An example that is putting it in real world for you is like you go through, I'm going to throw out a number and I know it's going to be wrong, but a $30 bit. Right? And somebody out there is like, $30, it's probably $180. Like, sorry. But a $30 bit is what I'm just going to talk about. If you go through a $30 bit every 20 sheets of material, that's, do the math quick, and you're like $1.50, right?
So that $1.50.
Yeah, $1.50 per sheet. So you add $1.50 to your cost per job, right?
Which is nothing.
Right.
In the big picture.
Correct. And so if you look at it as $1.50 to the job or each sheet, and so maybe you're cutting, I don't know, let's say you're cutting 60 sheets for that customer, right? Well, now that $30 can get you 20 sheets, so you're going to charge that 3 times. So you add $90 to the estimate,
yep,
and you cover your costs. And does the customer balk at $90? Probably not. Right? Maybe they will.
Assuming it's not a $40 job, which it would be if it's 60 sheets.
Correct.
So
I can't imagine, that anybody's doing it cheaper.
It's all going to math out to itself, right?
Yeah. You're mathing isn't it mathing? But no, it's the truth. Like, if it's done right, the consumables essentially pay for themselves and then some, because the profits are where you're just covering your consumable cost.
Right.
Flat, 1-to-1, right? You don't necessarily need to make money on the consumable.
And I would guess that everybody that they're going to get prices for is doing the same thing. So it's not like you're going to be way out of line by covering your costs, because everybody's doing it.
Your profitability should cover itself, right? So like, you're going to make your margin on the profits, but your costing's your costing for tooling. So the other thing about consumables, and something I see often, and this goes back to tires on your truck. How many times you walk through a parking lot and see a tire that's just bald down to the core? It's just terrible, right? I worked at a tire shop in high school. That was the worst. People would come in, especially when it rains and it snows. People come in on those days, and it's usually because they need to change the shorts. They probably
should have done this 6 months ago.
Yeah.
However, now it's snowing and I can't get anywhere.
They found out really quickly that they are not as good of a driver as they thought they were once they have no traction.
And there's you and 200 other people that did the same thing.
Right. But the reason I bring that up is because better quality pays off, right?
Yeah.
And if you're wearing out consumables and then trying to be cheap on your consumables, and then this goes back to the people who get micromanaged on their consumable usage, right? Well, they're just going to extend a consumable longer than they should. And that can cause some problems for your business, because it's, for one, a safety hazard. I mean, everybody knows that cutting with a dull tool is never good, right? But especially in a router, right? You put a dull bit on there, it's a fire hazard.
For sure.
You're basically creating a fire starter. So the other thing is they use the wrong consumables for the job because they don't have the right one, because they don't want to spend money. So then they use the wrong thing, and then now it affects everything. The machine takes more wear and tear. The quality of the part might go downhill.
And then, heck, you may not even finish it correctly.
Right.
I mean, you may have to get 20 sheets in and realize, oh, these are all wrong. Now we got to start over.
Yeah, it costs you more money in the long run, right? The other thing is people will often, especially in today's world, we go to Amazon for everything. I'm included. I'm not saying that I'm any different. I go out there especially when I'm looking for race car stuff, like, hey, let's go to Amazon and see what they got on Amazon special today. But I have learned so many times that doesn't always pan out well. And that doesn't mean you get a bad thing either. I've gotten some really cool stuff on Amazon. Don't get me wrong. There's some really good products, and Amazon doesn't always mean low quality.
I think it just depends like what item it is and what you're going to use it for.
Correct.
Like if it's something that you're just getting because you see it and found it and like, oh, this looks cool, like fine. If it doesn't last, it doesn't last. But like going back to getting something for your race car, like you get something that you find on Amazon because it's half the price of something else, but you have to buy 3 of them to get the amount of time usage out of what you would have gotten one.
And that's
so you end
really,
up behind anyways, right?
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. Is I was just going to say that, like, what I'm referring to here is, and I'm not saying everything on Amazon's cheap. I'm just using Amazon as the example, and you can find this on tons of different websites, you know? But many cheap consumables are cheap for a reason, right? They're generally not the same quality. Otherwise, they'd be charging the same price. So generally, if the consumable is cheaper, it's meant to wear faster, or it's not going to give you as good of a cut quality, right? It might give you a good cut quality, not a great, right? But it may cut poorly as it starts to, wear. It may dull or chip faster. It may lead to scrap or rework, right? And that doesn't mean every cheap tool is that way, right? You might find a really good deal, but quality tools might cost more upfront, but in most cases, they're gonna last longer. They're gonna deliver a cleaner result. They're going to help you reduce mistakes, right? Because they're not cutting poorly, as we talked about.
The thing that popped into my head is what if you're using something that's cheaper and less expensive and something happens and it causes damage to a different part of your machine or a different part of your car or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it can kind of have a trickle-down effect on what it could damage. And it ends up costing you a ton of money because something crummy got into your machine or whatever it was.
I've actually seen that with some vacuum pumps. In Becker pumps specifically, there's a vane. It's a carbon vane, or they call them a root, and you have to replace those. They're a maintenance item, and they're not cheap. I will say that they're $2-3 when it has to happen. And I've seen people, many years down the road when they need to be replaced, go buy a knockoff one, and then the knockoff one explodes, right, or shatters, and then sends carbon shrapnel throughout the pump, which then blows the pump up.
So now your $20,000 pump is ruined because
you
saved $800.
Correct, exactly. You saved a few $100 and you blow up this pump, And so that's the real thing is like the right consumables keep the machine running more efficiently. And that means a lot of times fewer delays because less downtime, fewer frustrations for both you and your customer because let's be honest, when a machine goes down, it's bad for everybody. And it's more consistent profits because your profits don't account for these abnormal situations, right?
Yep.
Like you can't account for something that you don't know, right? If you can't manage it, you can't manage what you can't measure, right? That's the word? Yeah. Can't manage what you can't measure. There
you go.
So if you don't have a way of saying like, I know that I'm going to, again, a bit, I know I'm going to get 20 sheets out of it. I can measure it, right? Okay. I know how far I got out of that. So now I can account for it but I don't know what this bit's going to last because it's an unknown and they break sporadically. It makes it harder to charge for them, right? Or you end up having to charge more because I have to charge for a bit on every job because I don't know if it's going to make it to the next job.
Right.
So the big thing about consumables is tracking it. I think people are so fearful of consumables, they purposely try not to track it, right? Like, if I don't think about it, it's not there, it's not real.
But then you get to the end of the year and you're like, oh, I should have had a way more profit here. What happened? Oh, well, it's because
that's exactly it.
You spent all that money on bits that you weren't. And it goes back to how many, a bunch of episodes ago when we were talking about taking the step back and spending time on your business that you need to.
Right.
Like you made the example of having somebody do your accounting that knows how accounting, so you're not wasting your time. Have somebody track your consumables that works with them or does them, or you do it, so you know what that cost is, right? To put it into the cost of doing your business.
And I think it's as easy as like just track it, a consumable usage by a machine, right? If you have multiple machines, just have have a log or have a notebook or something, right? And just track the material, track the machine, whatever the job type. I don't care, whatever you do, track it, just to know like, am I?
It doesn't take a lot of time to do if you do it every job or,
I imagine it takes a lot more the first time because you've never done it.
Sure.
But once you kind of like develop a system and you kind of figure it out, I feel like it goes a lot easier. It's just, I mean, it's like mowing the grass the first time. You know, it's always longer, and it's like, okay, it's gonna take me longer. But once you get it under manageable, you know, then you start doing it weekly, it's less of a headache.
For
so,
sure. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. And, you got to use the data as well. Like, just tracking it doesn't get you anywhere. You got to use that data because you got to put smart pricing in place. Like, you got to order before you run out. That's the one thing I see probably is the number one fault of businesses with consumables is they try to run really lean on inventory.
Sure.
And so they break a bit unexpectedly, or they run out of consumable, or something happens, and now suddenly they're overnighting something, or they're paying more money for that consumable because they need to get, instead of buying the 5-pack and getting it, like, I need one right now, so they go get one, and it's like that can drive your costs up so bad.
So you saved $20 on getting one less, and then you had to pay $40 to overnight it when it went out.
So right. And that's the thing is, like, it builds confidence also in your quoting process, because how many business owners I've talked to over the years, when I ask them about their quoting processes, and they're always like, well, I mean, I think we're pretty close on that. Like, they're not really confident in their pricing. And I'm like, for one, how do you give a discount? How do you give a discount if you don't know what your cost really is, right? If one of your good customers says, hey, I need you to do better, and you don't know where your costing is, you probably can't, like, speak to profitable business. You're kind of going off of the cuff, right?
Right. And have no idea. Like, then you tell them a price and then go back and look at it like, oh, well, that was a little too much.
Right. Yeah. And you find out the hard way, because it's usually once your bank account didn't go up as much as you expected it to. So you got to stop treating consumables like they're a guessing game, right? You've got to start treating them like they're a controlled investment. It's something I'm going to invest in to ensure that I get to where I need to go. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. So not a whole lot more to be said about that, but consumables. And the reason I brought it up is, like I said, I had a customer I was talking to, and they were just really concerned about gas consumption. They were cutting so many sheets of material, and they were like, oh, I'm using gas, and I want to get away from using gas because of the cost of gas. And I just said to them, I'm like, are you getting bad results? Or like, no, it's just if I could save that money on gas. And I'm like, just charge for the gas.
Right.
Figure out how much gas you're getting out of a bottle and charge it per sheet. And he was like, that's a really good idea. He's like, I never even thought about that. He's like, I've always eaten the cost. I'm like, why? Your customer is the one who's asking for the product, so charge for the gas as part of the cost.
But I bet there's a lot of people that do that, though.
And that's what he said. He's like, I just never have gotten to that point where and he even admitted to it. He's like, I've been doing it this way since I was a one-man shop doing it by myself. And so admittedly, I didn't know how to even cost, analysis for, I didn't even know what consumables I was going to use. He's like, now that we're 13 years into business or whatever he said he was, it's like, now we have a better understanding of what we're going to use, but we've never changed our model, and that's where I think as businesses, we have to sometimes realize we're growing. And when you're growing, that sometimes means you need to make adjustments.
And it's okay to charge for your product and its quality.
Yeah. Correct. Consumables aren't stealing your profits. They're supporting them. So you really need to plan for them. You need to manage them, price accordingly. They're part of the engine that keeps your business moving forward, right?
Yep.
And
a real big part of it.
Yeah, like you just need to.
Without that stuff, you're not making anything.
Correct. You just got to account for it. And it's another reason why when people are like, oh, it doesn't cost you that much to make something, like you have to remember the little things that it does cost you. Just because your customer doesn't necessarily see your value doesn't make your product any less valuable.
100%.
So you have to just think about those things, because sometimes you're going to get a person who just can't see all the expenses that go into doing what you do,
right,
and they think you can do it cheaper, and you really need to know your cost to know, can you do it cheaper, or are you tapped out?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, anyways, that's kind of what I have today. If you want help choosing the right machine and talking about the right consumables, keeping your shop running strong, obviously reach out to our team here at ShopSabre. We'll help you. We know a lot about CNC machines, in terms of plasmas, routers, lasers. If you need to know about consumables there, we can talk to you about that stuff. Obviously, share this with other business owners. Share this with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to us. We're going to have new episodes every week. Obviously, we enjoy you guys joining us here for Talkin Shop. My motivational quote of the week, I'm going to jump into it right away. I came up with one this week that was, success is simple. Do what's right, the right way, at the right time. So it's not this magical, like, how many times you hear people like, you gotta you just got to get lucky. Like, no, it's not luck.
No,
it's just
not.
doing simple tasks, which is doing what's right, right? Do what's right the right way at the right time. And sometimes that's doing something you don't want to do.
Uncomfortable situations always make you better.
Always make you better. Become comfortable being uncomfortable. So
I'm always uncomfortable sitting next to you.
Hey, Luigi's never uncomfortable next to Mario. It's me, Mario.
It's me, Luigi, the lost friend, the forgotten friend. Just over here, hanging out, running behind Mario all the time.
Well, you can be the host next week if you want. I'll be Luigi.
Yeah, me and Jim. I'll host Jim. I'm going to make it happen.
I doubt it. I encourage you to try to make it happen, though.
Before my time ends here, he will be on a podcast at some point.
Fair.
So we have a long time to figure that out.
We got a long time to figure that out then. Yeah. So like I said, kind of thinking ahead, think about your consumables, think about what you're going to do this week to take control of your business and move on to the next step. And then next week, we will be back with another episode here at Talkin Shop. And as always, thanks for tuning in to Talkin Shop. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Nick.
Until next time, keep talking shop.